There have been some updates with the Tyler Robinson story that I think we really do need to dive into. The first one and foremost is the evidence on the scene. This was sent to me, and I think we need to talk about tampering with evidence. I find it very strange that after Charlie Kirk's shooting, that there were people on the scene. Let's bring this up onto the screen here, where the tech guy was able to just move items around and remove items. Now, I want to explain very, very clearly here. Let me put this up on the screen. This is a crime scene. Does everybody understand this? This is a crime scene. You cannot remove items. You're not supposed to move around items at a crime scene. Yet, watch what happens here. We had to mute the music, Kirk, because I don't know. Okay, so what is this? Okay, so you move in the chair. Violation number 1. He moved the chair to stand onto the chair. Again, this is a crime scene. And I don't hear anyone from the FBI pointing this out. How many of you watching, you're probably like, look, I may not be a lawyer, but I've watched enough damn Law and Order in my lifetime to know that you're not supposed to move things around from a crime scene. Let's continue. Now he's standing on evidence. And here is the camera that he is removing from the scene. Once again, that is evidence. This is a crime scene. Pause here. Now he goes forward to say it was addressed on Charlie Kirk's show, panel discussion, that he felt that he should remove it because he didn't want the public to get a hold of it and try to make like mean images or anything of it. That's really not his decision. That is a crime scene. So by him removing that and putting his hands on the chair, is he wearing gloves? No. When the police get to the scene to investigate, they don't have everything to investigate. That's the first thing we need to point out. They don't have everything to investigate because he is removing evidence. And nobody seems to think this is a problem in the FBI. You don't hear the FBI calling this out at all. See? And looks like he's putting it somewhere else. Again, this is a crime scene. Look at this. And it's probably true that he didn't want the footage to get out. That's not the point. You can't do this at a crime scene. That part. Very strange to me. Very strange to me. When I tell you guys, I say it's happening. It is happening. More information that is coming out as well. Combine that with these text messages, which to me don't make any sense. I wanted to get into this the other day. I just want to show you these text messages that are reported here from CNN, right? So look at this. This is supposed to be Tyler Robinson. And he's texting his roommate, drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it. The roommate says, what? You're joking, right? Tyler allegedly says, I am still okay, my love. I am still okay, my love. Who talks like that in 2025? What 22-year-old talks like that in 2025? That sounds like something that Chat GPT would have said. It goes on to say, shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. You had hoped to keep the secret until you died of old age. But here you are sending text messages. You weren't the one who did it, right? I am. I'm sorry. Pause. So we're supposed to believe the guy who changed clothes, what, 2, 3 times, they're alleging? We're supposedly believe this same guy who changed clothes multiple times because he didn't want it to get traced back to him, at the same time left a text message that said he did it. This story is crazy, you guys. I keep telling you this story doesn't make any sense to me. No. Oh, I thought they caught the person. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of the town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate says, why? Why did I do it? Yeah, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Pause, flag on the play. So he proceeds to say, if I would grab my rifle unseen, I would have left no evidence. But here you are leaving evidence with text messages. Goes on to say, how long have you been planning this? Again, none of this makes no sense. How long have you been planning this? So you're the roommate, right? So your roommate just tells you that they just killed, said podcaster, and that they are going to get the rifle and not leave any evidence. Your response is, how long have you been planning this? Seriously? None of this to me makes any sense. I'm not even going to read the rest of it because it's just bad. But none of this to me makes any sense. Then we go on to the FBI and where they went wrong with things. And shout out to Garland Nixon. He sent this to me, right? Let's fast forward some of the things that were broken down here, which I think is important. Check this out. Where some of the story with the FBI does not make sense. Weird thing is, Robinson doesn't even have a digital footprint, but here is the real zinger. Kash Patel told us that we know the gun found in the woods was that of the killer because the DNA matched the DNA on the screwdriver on the roof. He claims the screwdriver was used to disassemble and reassemble the gun. There are massive plot holes here. First, disclosing DNA results and implying someone's guilt violates DOJ rules and due process. These rules can be found in the DOJ's Justice Manual and are designed to prevent prejudice to a defendant's right to a fair trial. This means even if Robinson was the killer, this case could be thrown out under the 5th and 14th Amendment. Nice work, they go on to say. Let's go forward here a little bit. If you're not up to speed, footage and images show the alleged killer walking around campus, but he's not carrying a gun at any point. The murder weapon is supposedly a Mauser 98 that is 48 inches long, but the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk has not been found. The gun was supposedly found in the woods, but we can't say it was the murder weapon until the bullet has been found. So this was something that was really weird to me. In any of the footage, not in any of the footage I saw, I didn't see him walking around campus with a gun. Now, I do understand it can be disassembled and it could have been in the book bag. Okay. But I still didn't believe that the evidence that the FBI presented was, I would say, tight enough to say, this guy did it, we have to arrest him. I never believed that. I was like, okay, so you're arresting this guy. You're like, he jumped off a roof, so you're arresting this guy. Okay. But we have no video footage till this day. I haven't seen any video footage of him with that gun. Let's continue on. The explanation is that the killer dropped the gun in the woods, picked it up the next day, disassembled it, stuffed the 24-inch barrel in their trouser leg, headed to the roof, changed their clothes, reassembled the gun, recalibrated the sights, carried out the killing, disassembled the gun, climbed from the roof, returned to the woods, changed their clothes back again, reassembled the gun, placed it in a cardboard box, and wrapped it in a towel. Is he Tom Cruise? Is he MacGyver? Some of the young peeps might not recognize that one. Is he MacGyver? Who is this guy? He had time to do all of that while a massive manhunt was happening? It doesn't make any sense. One problem is you don't use a screwdriver to disassemble a Mauser 98. You use a hex wrench, Allen key, as well as other tools. We were told the killer reassembled the gun in the woods, but how did he do this if the screwdriver was left on the roof? And more importantly, why would he do this? Why would he reassemble the murder weapon prior to discarding it? What would he gain from slowing himself down like that? TMZ pointed out the suspected shooter was recorded a quarter mile away on 800 W Street just 31 minutes before the shooting. This means he had to limp a quarter of a mile with a 24-inch barrel in his trouser leg, climb onto a roof, change his clothes, assemble the gun, calibrate the sights, and get into position in 31 minutes. Now, it sounds like a scene from a movie. I told you, this story does not make any sense. The story that the FBI gave does not make any sense. And it almost seems like to me that they were just so desperate to catch someone and catch them quickly. But the evidence, like this stuff don't add up. Doesn't add up, bruh. Your stories are very strange to me. Here's another one. Remember, Mauser 98 rifles are not easy to assemble, and the killer was using a screwdriver, not a hex wrench. That's something to keep in mind. Here's something else. The woods are in the opposite direction of 800 W Street, so presumably Robinson went one way to collect the weapon and then walked past the college for a quarter a mile or more, only to turn around half an hour before the killing. Alternatively, the real killer never went into the woods and the rifle is a decoy. The simplest explanation is usually correct, and it's hard to explain how Robinson is the killer without tying yourself in knots. Yeah, these are the things that I said. I just don't feel like they had enough information to say this guy definitely did it. And it's happening. People are putting pieces together. People are like, wait a minute now. How could this guy have done all of those things in a short amount of time and nobody saw again? So he had the rifle in his pants leg the whole time while he was walking home? And how do you do that and not limp? So I just don't see that they had enough evidence to corroborate their story. But I feel like there was pressure. There was pressure brought upon the FBI to get this solved and get this solved quickly. How do we even know for sure that they have the right person? How do we know? They could, but they have already told the public that this person is guilty, and the evidence that I see don't really say that. Chuck Modi said something really interesting here. Related, Trump poisoned Charlie Kirk murder investigation on day one by blaming the radical left before any suspect was arrested. That put pressure on Kash Patel and the FBI to fit his pre-narrative. If this is what Trump said publicly, what kind of pressure is he applying privately? Also, Trump's political interference will also make it easier for Kirk's killer to beat the case. Before they even had a suspect, they were already telling you who the killer was. They were already telling you it was a radical leftist. They said the person was trans. Listen, all these things came up before they even had it. So that they could already put in your mind who the person is. Usually, the person who gets the story out first is the one that has the advantage. The person who gets the story out second is on the defense. In these particular situations with media, when you're on the offense, you have the upper hand. It is much harder, I think, to get people to believe that it could be a different story than it is to come out with the story first. But I think with this particular situation, people are asking questions, as they should. The FBI story does not make sense. And I think there was some sloppiness there. And finally, you're going to hear from the panel here on the Charlie Kirk show what Charlie Kirk's wife said.
Immediate hours afterwards, Erica got a call from somebody very important. I'll leave that vague, out of privacy, but she got a call from somebody very important. And the question was, what do you know? Sort of asking how much of what's going on behind the scenes and with the relationship, like, what do you know? And her reply back was, everything. I know everything.
Wonder who that important person was that made that call. This is wild, you guys. It's a wild story. We're going to keep following this story because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, none of this makes any sense. I feel like the FBI just came up with a bunch of gibberish just to get that story out there. They had no proof before they even found the suspect, before they even had a suspect. They had no proof that this person was left or radical or trans or whatever, but they put that out there because they knew that that would work. We got to pay attention, guys. We got to pay attention. Hey, guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.